All right, here we go, Algebra 1. Last week we did systems of equations with elimination. This week we do systems of equations with substitution. Substitution is just a different skill that you use to solve these types of equations. You have two equations with two unknowns, or later in Algebra 2 you get three equations with three unknowns, and they can build up from there. So we're just dealing with the basic case where you have two equations, or really two lines, on the coordinate plane, and they're going to cross somewhere at a certain point. Substitution is the secondary method you can use along with elimination to get these things solved. Start off pretty easy on your worksheet. Number 1 looks like this: y equals 6x minus 11 and negative 2x minus 3y equals negative 7. Now, this is on the substitution worksheet, and what you notice right away is that the first equation has y equals this 6x minus 11. So 6x minus 11 is the value that I can plug into the other equation for that y. So since y and that 6x minus 11 are equal to each other, I can plug that in for y right there. Now that's what I'm going to do as my first step. Substitute that in there and rewrite the second equation. It starts out as 2x minus 3, and then I'm going to plug the y in there, but y is now 6x minus 11. Still finishing off this equation equals negative 7. And now I have those two equations put together into one equation where I can now solve for the x. There's no y values left in this equation, just x's. So I have to distribute that negative 3 in. I get negative 2x minus 18x plus 33 equals negative 7. Bringing together these terms right here, negative 2 and negative 18 is negative 20x. I can subtract 33 from both sides and get negative 40 on the other side of the equal sign. And now simply dividing by the negative 20, dividing by the negative 20, gets the x by itself, equals 2, it looks like. I'm going to take that value back into the original equation. So I'm going to plug it back in now for that x. So I have the x value, and now I want to find the y value. To do that, I'm going to use the information I just found out. So I'm going to rewrite y equals 6x minus 11, right? I'm just going to now take that and say y equals 6 times 2 minus 11, because that is what the x value is. Boom, plugged in or substituted in over there. Y equals 12 minus 11, so y should equal 1. That's the other part of my answer. If I put those together, 2 comma 1 as a point. If you remember on the coordinate plane, over 2, up 1, boom. So these lines, these two lines are going to crisscross on the coordinate plane. This is just an approximation, but they're going to cross or intersect right there at that point. If you look at another one together here, number 7 is a little bit different. We'll take a look at number 11. Just jumping to number 11, x plus 3y equals 1, and negative 3x minus 3y equals negative 15. When I see this, I see that we could use elimination here, positive 3y and a negative 3y, but this is the substitution worksheet, so we're going to do this with substitution. Up here we had y equals something, but here I see this x kind of hanging out by itself. Not connected to any other coefficient. So I'm going to try to solve this equation. I'm going to move this over here and say, let's solve for x. So if I move the 3y to the other side, I'll be left with x equals, it'll be a negative 3y on the other side of the equal sign, and a positive 1 is still there. So now I have that idea of x equals negative 3y plus 1. I'm going to plug that in for x in the other equation. Ends up being a lot of writing, but when I do this, I get negative 3, and then the x value is going to be negative 3y plus 1. Then I continue on this equation. That minus 3y equals negative 15. A little bit of work here algebraically. That's why it's an algebra class. 9y minus 3 minus 3y. I don't distribute that out here because it's not inside of these parentheses, so the minus 3y comes down, equals negative 15. 3y minus 3y is 6y. I'm going to move that negative 3 over here, but it's a positive 3, so I get negative 12 and then divide by 6, y should equal, in this case, -2. And it does. I just have the y value now, so I'm going to plug that back in and solve for the x. If I plug it right back in for that y, I'll get this equation, x equals -3. Plug the y in, it's a -2 we just found out, plus 1. Multiply this together, x equals 6 plus 1, or x should equal 7 in this case. 7 comma -2 is the point where these two original lines would cross on the coordinate plane. The basic idea here is that when you use substitution, the first thing you have to do is get one of the variables by itself. And number one, the y was already by itself. Y equals, it was already by itself on one side of the equal sign. And it had this, so I can plug this 6x minus 11 in for y in the other equation. Down here in number 11, we had to do a little bit of work first. I had to get that 3y to the other side of the equal sign. And once it was over there, I had the x by itself. X equals -3y plus 1. Take that and plug it into the second equation, and then simplify your work. You get down to an answer. Take that answer, plug it back into one of the first two equations, and plugging it right back in there allows me to solve for x pretty much right away. And you get 7 and -2, x and y values. You're supposed to do some of the worksheet, I think, up to number 12. Possibly the whole thing, we'll see, but I expect to see this work, you solving the problem and plugging it back in, and show me the other work in your notebook to get down to the final answer. So if you can show me that, or send in an email or a picture with your work in your notebook, you'll get full credit. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on Thursday.